Coslet, and this is Cooking Classic. We're here in the studios of the Culinary Arts Institute at Luzerne County Community College in Nanticoke. Now, you probably know this guy that's with me because he's kind of a regular here on Cooking Classic. Executive Chef Dave Pembleton.
Hello.
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm terrific, thank you very much. Now, if you don't know, Chef David is a professor in the Culinary Arts program as well as the Pastry Arts program here at Luzerne County Community College, and he has just received an award. Congratulations,
Well,
Chef of the Year, correct?
Right.
By the Culinary Federation?
The American Culinary Federation of
that's
Northeastern
great.
Pennsylvania. Well, thank you.
So how did that come about?
Well, it's an award they give almost every year based on certain criteria. If you meet that criteria, there's 8 out of 10 things that you have to do, and if you if you complete all those types of things, then they vote on that, and if you have the necessary points, then they award you that.
Oh, that's fabulous. So
I
did your peers nominate you? Did they tell me about that?
They do. It's more of a list of things to do, though. 8 out of 10 of these things, and then they have a committee that they go through the process, and they make sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, and if you indeed have all the things that you need, then they award you that award.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And you know what? He does that here as well. He makes sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. That's one of his jobs here on Cooking Classic. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that? What's it actually like to get ready for this?
Well, it's a lot of behind the scenes work.
Yeah.
As you know, writing recipes. Talking with other chefs, making sure that they're comfortable with the set, checking out what they're doing, making sure that the gas is on, making sure that everything works.
See, and you think this is easy stuff, we just show up and go.
Right, and then interviewing students to do the student segments and training those people, writing the scripts for them, and getting them up to speed and making sure they're not nervous and helping them along, because that's one of the things we want to do here is have student involvement as well, and then working with yourself and working with other people.
That's a really easy task.
That works, and it's really fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and plus there's a lot of cooking involved, which is what I really like to do.
And that's what we're going to do.
Right.
In just a minute when we return. We'll be right back with Cooking Classic. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Aaliyah, a culinary student at Luzerne County Community College, and I'm here with your culinary tip of the day. Fresh herbs are a way to add color and flavor to your dishes. Fresh herbs are also found in your local grocery stores. Parsley is your first herb. Parsley can be used for multiple things. You can use the stems for flavoring your stocks and soups, and also use the tops of it. You can mince the top of it, and use it as a garnish for your soups, salads, and entrees. And your second herb is basil. Basil has a soft and delicate flavor, and I often like to chiffonade it, just rolling it all up, and slicing it. And you also can use this as a garnish, and also adds flavor to your soups, salads, and entrees. And your third herb is rosemary. Rosemary is good to add flavor to your roasted potatoes, grilled chicken, and also your marinades. Take it right off the stem. Then you mince it. And it's an easy way to add garnish and flavor to your entrees. I hope these simple tips with fresh herbs have helped you cook at home with them. This is your culinary tip of the day. Thank you. Bon appetit.
Welcome back to Cooking Classic. I'm Kathy Coslet, and I am with certified executive chef Dave Pembleton.
Hello.
And hello. He's here to create one of my favorites. Him and I talked about this a little bit, some reminiscing going on. We'll do that while we're cooking. Pot roast, right?
Okay. All right then. Yes.
An old favorite.
Yes, and one of my favorites. Okay, first thing, it's really important to pick the right cut of meat.
Which is
Chuck.
chuck.
If I'm making pot roast for home, it's the only piece of meat that I would use.
Why a chuck roast as opposed to other cuts that people say are a little better?
Okay, you see this band?
I do.
That's connective tissue.
Okay.
And wherever the animal gets a little bit more exercise, there's more connective tissue. Now, connective tissue can be tough, but if you know how to cook properly using the braising method, you could actually break that connective tissue down into collagen, into water, which actually makes it taste better.
Okay.
So this cut of meat is my very favorite for making this at home. Now, if I made pot roast for a lot of people, sometimes in the industry we're going to make it for 400 or 500 people.
Oh my gosh.
I wouldn't use a cut from the chuck because it's a lot of work then to clean it. I would use cuts from the round, but for home use, I think that the cuts from the chuck, and you can see the marbling in there, and you know, and that kind of stuff's going to equal a lot of flavor.
Okay.
So we're going to start with that. We're going to start with a little bit of oil in our pot here.
Right. Now, I don't know about any of you, but this was something that my mom just loved to make, right? This was a special thing.
Yeah, and my mom made this frequently for us because
mine did too.
Because her mom made it a lot.
Yep.
And it's using a cheaper cut of meat, and so it's a little more economical. But you can see I'm pushing it down in this pot here, and the reason I'm doing that is I want to get a good sear on the bottom of that meat to get it really brown.
All right. Now, you didn't season it before you put it in there.
I didn't season the bottom, but I'm going to season the top.
Okay.
The reason being, if I put a lot of seasoning on there, sometimes it draws moisture to the top, and it doesn't caramelize as well.
All right.
So I think that it's very, very important to brown this, okay? So now I'm going to take a little salt and pepper, and I'm just going to season a little bit on the top. And there's so much flavor to this meat. I mean, I don't really think that seasoning is really all that important, okay? So the caramelization, to me, for pot roast is the most important thing.
All right. So, how long do you think somebody would leave it in there to do that?
Well, I
That's
don't know.
somebody being you about
I don't know.
that.
I think on each side. I mean, I think that to get the correct caramelization, I just tell my students when it's ready, you know, and when it's brown enough. But if you're cook by timing, I'm going to say it's probably going to take 7 or 8 minutes on each side. Okay.
All right. That's longer than I thought, actually.
Yeah, and you know, some people say, okay, that's long enough, but until that caramelization has taken place, it's not.
You know what? Let's just back up a minute, too. I didn't ask you what kind of oil you used.
It's just a vegetable oil.
Okay.
Just a regular vegetable
But
oil.
that's what it should be, correct?
Yeah, you want to get something with a high smoking point.
Okay.
If you try to use olive oil or other oils like that have low smoking points, to get this type of caramelization, I think it would burn.
Okay.
So I think,
and then it's going to create a funky taste and
So I think corn oil, vegetable oil, those types of things are probably the best.
Okay.
All right, so while that's happening, Kathy, I think we're going to start to cut our vegetables.
Okay.
So,
Carrots?
Yeah, let's do the carrots first.
Go ahead.
So we're just,
All right. Now talk a little bit about this chopping and cutting technique, because you're really good at this. This is like one of my weak points.
what I do is, you notice the carrot it's not the same size all the way through. So I cut a couple of slices first, then I cut it through, so they're uniform, so they all cook the same.
All right,
okay?
and show us, you know, you're using that part of the knife, and show us where your fingers are on the other side of the carrot.
Yeah, my fingers are curled, so I don't cut them. Okay, I don't think that would be tasty.
Yeah, don't do that now, all right?
And then we cut them in half like so.
You have a pot roast to finish here.
Right. Now, a lot of times, like I'm just going to simmer these in water here today, Kathy. But a lot of people like to roast the vegetables for pot roast.
That's what my mom always did.
So they would, well, you know, just toss them in a little bit of oil, a little bit of seasonings, and then put them in the oven.
Okay.
And when they put the pot roast, when the pot roast is done cooking, they put the whole thing in the oven, and that way the vegetables and the pot roast are done at the same time. Okay. But this is just kind of the way that I've been used to doing it. And you can see that this doesn't take that much time to chop these. So sometimes when I'm cooking at home, I take the whole cutting board right over to the pot. We can bring over those potatoes.
These are my favorites too.
Small red potatoes. And what I generally do, Kathy, these are really small.
Right.
If I get the size that we get in the restaurant, I usually quarter them. But since they're so small, I'm just going to cut them in half.
Do you notice any difference in flavor or texture of these tiny petites as opposed to the larger ones?
Yeah,
I do.
I think they're creamier.
Yeah, I agree.
They're creamier. Yeah. I think the starch content is a little bit higher, I think. and it just leads to them being creamier. However, they're twice the price. You know, and that's one thing about red potatoes. If you're going to use red potatoes, I never take the skins off.
Right.
Because you want to show people that you're using that really high quality stuff.
Right.
Okay?
No, you can use any potato you want, though,
You
correct?
can-
Like,
you
you
can
don't
use
have to
any-
worry about that. Whatever you
Yeah.
have in your kitchen.
You know, I like russet potatoes because I think they have a firmer texture. You know, I'm going to employ my tool here.
So you'll know how you rate depending upon what potato he makes when you come for dinner.
Usually I buy what's market fresh and what's you know,
Good comeback.
what's cheap.
Oh,
Now,
that looks
can
great.
you see that?
I
That
can.
caramelization, that is one of the most
That's
important
beautiful,
things when you're making a pot roast. Now, my mother made a really good pot roast when we were growing up, but she employed the crock pot, but she didn't do
Oh.
that first.
Okay.
Now, you could use a crock pot, but if you don't do this first, your pot roast won't
It's gonna
taste
go like this.
as
Well,
good as
my
fresh.
mom
Oh, we could do that, right?
did that.
You know? So, I mean, that caramelization is probably one of the most important points. Okay?
It looks wonderful.
Okay, so now we've got our carrots simmering, we've got our potatoes simmering, we've got our beef caramelized on one side, and so we have to wait for the other side. So we'll get the mise en place around so we can create our sauce.
Okay. So tell me what you would like next, except I have to say, like, Joanne's back there in the control room, by the way, her mouth is watering.
Okay.
She said her mom used to make this too.
Really?
The big Sunday dinner.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, now
what do you
let's, we're gonna need our tomato paste,
Okay.
and we're gonna need our onions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And after we've caramelized that nicely on that side, now what I like to do, now some people might not agree with me here,
What?
okay? I like to remove this,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
I like to remove it, so now I can
how
get my
delicious.
onions in there,
Okay.
because I want my onions to caramelize
go.
as well, okay? Take my wooden spoon again, I'm always using a wooden spoon. And there's a thing in the bottom called the fond, in the very bottom of the pot where that meat started to stick. Well, that creates an
Great
awful lot of
flavor,
flavor,
right?
isn't it? So we have to take our wooden spoon and we're going to try to scrape a lot of that stuff out of there as the onions are turning nice and brown. And some people might choose to use garlic as well.
Okay.
You know? So,
So why do you use a wooden spoon?
well, I use a wooden spoon because I don't like metallic taste.
Yeah, that's what
If
a
you
lot,
take them
yeah.
like these, I've seen some chefs and some cooks like scrape the bottom and with these, and then I think it gives a metallic taste. And not only that, if I'm making a lighter type sauce,
Right.
it kind of gives off a little bit of color, especially if
Okay.
you're using an
I
aluminum
never noticed
pot.
that. I know a lot of people say that when they make spaghetti sauce or gravy too, that they don't like to use metal.
Right. So I mean, this is a very important point here. So I'm taking a little bit of time, and you can see in the bottom those onions are starting to turn
Turn
brown.
brown.
That's called caramelization, and that is key to giving us good flavor.
Okay.
Now, I also like to use a little bit of tomato paste. Some people don't do this,
Yeah, I didn't. We didn't
know?
at home.
but I think that I'm only using a couple tablespoons, perhaps. But what this does, I think it does a few things. It adds a little bit of color to the sauce. It adds a little bit of body to the sauce, and it adds an awful lot of flavor.
Okay.
Because that's really real concentrated flavor from the tomato product. Okay. So I do that, and it kind of sticks on the bottom as well, and I'm kind of getting that through there
Okay.
as well. Okay. The next thing we'll need, Kathy, is we'll need that broth. Okay. So
Okay,
could you
sure.
please hand me that broth?
Absolutely.
And I have about a quart, I guess, here, and this is just beef broth.
Okay.
If you have homemade stuff, it's great. If you don't, you can use the stuff that you can get out of the supermarket.
And it doesn't matter if it's a lower salt or anything like that.
If you're
you
looking
don't
for
care?
lower salt, sure. I mean, you can kind of use whatever whatever you want for your family. Okay. I think that there's so much flavor out of this piece of meat. You could easily use water.
Okay.
And you would still get as much flavor. Although,
This looks so good.
that you can see that the fond's coming from the. Now, can you hand me my secret ingredient?
Yes, here it comes, the secret ingredient.
Secret ingredient. Should we tell them?
Sure.
All right.
I'm not telling them because I don't want to get blamed for it later. Like you
Okay.
gave the secret away.
Well, when we cook here at the school, we cook tougher cuts of meat, like cuts from the chuck or the round
Okay.
or the flank. I like to employ a little vinegar.
Okay. To
Because what
break it
vinegar
down.
does, that connective tissue that I
Right.
talk about, that starts to eat that connective tissue away.
Yeah.
And it
Interesting.
helps to make it tender, and it cooks, rather than to cook this thing for 2.5 to 3 hours, you might be able to get away with cooking it for 1.5 to 2 hours.
Oh, that's
So
interesting. That's great.
It cuts down on the cooking time.
So you heard it here.
Okay,
Vinegar.
so now we have our liquid, our cooking liquid. Now we're going to put our meat back into the pot.
It really looks good, David. It really
Okay,
does.
and if you notice, the liquid is about halfway to 3/4 up the meat.
Yes,
it should not cover the meat completely because then it sucks too much flavor out of the meat.
Okay.
Okay, and always when you braise something, you put it on about medium heat, and then you always cover it. Okay.
So that's really important.
It's
Halfway, 3/4, medium heat, then cover.
Then cover it.
Okay.
Okay. Once it's there, you're good.
Okay. Before we break, the carrots and potatoes are doing just fine.
They're doing just fine, and
All
you know,
right.
in a few minutes we'll take them out. We're getting ready. Then I'll show you how to carve them. I'll show you how to tell when the meat is done.
Okay.
I'll show you how to carve it, and we'll thicken the sauce when we come back.
Okay. All that when we return. We'll be right back.
Thinking of taking it to the next level? Make it happen! Luzerne County Community College offers a quality education at an affordable price. It's the best choice when you're trying to make something of yourself.
Luzerne County Community College makes it happen.
Thanks for staying with us. You are going to be glad you did because we are coming into the home stretch now with this pot roast, and really, it smells great. It looks great. I think you're going to enjoy this.
Okay. Now, what's important, Kath? This thing's been cooking
Oh, my
about
goodness.
an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours. Okay. Can you hand me one of those forks over there, please?
Sure.
Now, the best way to tell if a braised piece of meat is done is if it's fork tender. And you can see this fork goes in here and out of this meat
Right.
with no problem at
Yeah,
all.
that
Okay?
looks amazing.
Okay? And you can see that the liquid there has dissipated. It's cooked down a little bit. As it's done, the flavor intensifies and all those types of things. Okay?
Now, you mentioned first of all, what size cut a piece of meat was this? Like how many pounds?
Probably 2.5 to 3 pounds.
Okay,
Right
and
in
it
that
took
area.
about an hour and a half.
Right.
And you think the vinegar probably helped that along a little bit?
I think so, at least by half an hour.
So if they don't use the vinegar, maybe add another half hour.
Yeah, maybe a half an hour.
What about the pot? Does it make any difference if it's because these are pretty heavy, the ones that you use?
Yeah, I really like these for the home.
Okay.
You know, I like them because, they're coated on the inside, they don't
Right.
stick, they have a nice even heat. But out in the food service industry, if I'm making pot roasts, we're making them in giant roasting pans.
Okay.
But if you just have a regular roasting pan at home, you could just cover it up. And you could actually do what I'm doing here instead of on top of the stove. You could do it in the oven.
Oh, all
A
right.
lot of people do that. And that way, if you don't really want to worry about it, the oven is a much rounder heat.
Okay.
And it's much more even and it doesn't stick. So if you
Okay.
wanted to do that, and you could put these types of
Pots in the oven.
right in the
Right.
oven.
Okay.
So you could do that.
All
So I
right.
think that this piece of meat is pretty well done, Kathy.
All right.
So I think I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to come right to the cutting board here, so I don't want to splash
All
you.
right, look at that, everybody.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people don't know is it's very important to let a piece of meat rest before you cut it. Because if you don't, all the natural juices come out
Okay.
and end up all over this cutting
All right.
board.
Yeah, so be patient,
Yes,
right?
sometimes
Be
you have
patient.
to, especially with roasted meat, but with braised meat as well. So we have something to do here while we're waiting. So we're going to thicken this up, Kathy. So
Okay.
now for this thing, could you pass me that water and that cornstarch, please?
Sure.
We're going to make a thing called a slurry. Can you put there we go.
There you
Now,
go.
we're gonna add
Oh,
our
I'm sorry.
water into our cornstarch, and it has to be cold water because if you use hot water, it'll start to make the process. It'll
too
start to
quick.
thicken the cornstarch.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So it has to be, now if you want a shinier sauce, which I do for this, I want a
Okay.
nice shiny sauce,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to use cornstarch. If you want something that tastes better, you could use a roux, right?
Okay.
So for this particular thing, I thought cornstarch slurry would work better. Okay.
It's also a little easier for
Right.
everyone,
Right.
at home, if you're just seeing this today and thinking, oh, I'd like to do that tonight.
Now, if you'd like to
bit
help me,
easier.
if you want to grab that whisk over there, Kathy.
Sure.
You're going to whisk, and I'm going to pour some of this
You got
stuff
it.
in. And you don't add it in all at once. You'd add in a little bit at a time, and you can see with that whisk, what's happened so far.
It's actually dissolving and it's getting a little bit thicker.
Okay, it's getting a little thicker, and it's getting
Here
shinier.
we go. Yes, it is.
Okay. And you want it thick enough to
Oh,
coat
it
the
smells
foods.
so good. Sorry, I had to stop whisking
Yeah.
to talk about that
There
for
you
a
go.
second.
It does smell good, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay.
Just like home.
Now, what do you think about the consistency of that, Kathy?
I think it's great just
Yeah.
the way it is.
I
I
think
wouldn't go
it's-
any thicker.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
And cornstarch and water, it's usually tablespoon to tablespoon. For a
Okay.
tablespoon of water, tablespoon, that kind of thing. But I generally
this is
don't measure it. I just bring it up to temperature and add it until it gets thick enough.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's done. So we're going to turn that off.
Turn that off.
And that part of our dish is done. Our carrots are done.
All right.
Our potatoes are done.
Potatoes are done.
So I think we're going to kind of turn those off. Now I'm going to show you then how to cut this piece of meat. You see the seam,
I do.
okay? That's called seam fat.
Okay.
And we have to remove that, okay? Because that's, it could be a little soft. And I think some people might not like that very much, okay? So we're going to remove that. We're going to push this over to here. So you can see there's a few different seams in this meat that we have to remove, okay? There's another one here. And sometimes there's some fat there. And you don't want anyone
that
to...
fat does create some pretty good flavor.
Oh, it
doesn't
absolutely
I
does.
mean, without that, this is pretty.
Oh
blah.
yeah, when it was cooking, it was giving us all types of flavor.
Right.
Okay, and it's flavor that other meat, like porterhouse steaks and different steaks, it doesn't have that. That's why I joke around with my students. Hey, do you think a steak tastes better or something from the chuck? And I prove to them by the end of the semester that hey, listen, that chuck, if you
Right.
cook it properly, it tastes better than that steak. Okay, and then we would take our knife and we always cut against the grain.
Okay.
And I cut it not thick and not thin, maybe about a 1/4 inch thick with a nice sharp knife. We're going to cut all the meat that we have there.
Okay.
And like I said, this probably would be enough to feed about 4 people.
Okay.
Maybe 5 with a smaller appetite. I could
4
probably eat the whole
people.
thing myself. Right?
2 people.
But it's a
David and me.
It's a stick to your ribs type meal. So after you eat a couple of the potatoes and some of the carrots and some of the beef, you get filled up pretty quickly, I think. So it does go a long way.
Okay.
So cleaning up
There we go.
that seam fat, that kind of thing, cutting the meat against the grain, I think it's very, very important. Okay, so.
So here we go. We're cutting the last piece here, and then when we come back, we're going to put this all together. And I can't guarantee you that I won't steal a piece before we return, but stay with us. I won't eat it all.
Make your life better by Degrees. Choose from over 100 academic and career programs at the area's lowest tuition. Achieve your career goals and reach your fullest potential at
Luzerne County Community College.
We are back. This is Cooking Classic, and Chef Dave Pembleton, Executive Chef Dave Pembleton, has made a pot roast for us. And we're about to plate that and take a taste.
Okay, all right then.
But I
Okay.
did cheat, and I did taste it on the break. It's great.
It's a very, very, very good thing that you brought up. It's really, really important to taste your food. So I'm going to taste the sauce here. And I have to say, I don't think it needs anything.
No?
No, I think that the
What a team.
right, and the flavor we got from that meat has really helped us out.
Okay.
So what I do is I generally put the center of the plate item in the center of the plate. Okay. Like so. So we're going to put all the meat.
Don't make it difficult, okay?
No, we put it right in the center, and I like
Okay.
to serve it like that. Sometimes when I'm at home, Kathy, I'll serve this right in the pot.
Well,
I'll
I
put
bet
everything
that's great.
right in the pot, and like I said, this will serve probably 4 to 5 people, or 2 hungry ones. They're nicely cooked. And again, the way I checked if they were done, Kath, I made sure that they were fork tender. Okay, like so.
I
Oh,
love
and
those
look at see how
little
nice they
potatoes.
cook.
Yeah, they really do. They're great.
And I like cutting them open so you can see the different color.
I love them anyway. I love them roasted in the oven.
Oh, they're great,
The
aren't they?
little oil.
They're
little
great.
Olive oil, rosemary.
Okay.
Just even salt and pepper. They're great.
Okay, now we're going to take some of our delicious sauce here, Kath. All right, and we're going to.
Well, I
gonna
guess
ladle
I'll have
this.
to eat this.
There you go.
Okay.
Was it done properly?
Yes, it was.
Not hard.
Fork tender.
Right. Not hard. Not soft.
No. Just
Like so,
right.
Just right.
No, that looks delicious.
Okay, and then you would always serve a little gravy boat
Right here.
or sauce boat right on the side, like so.
Oh, you missed a spot.
There you go. We can't do that, right? Like so. And then what I like to do, I like to take some
Yeah,
green
for some
peas,
color.
right, for a garnish.
Oh, that's
they call
really
it
nice.
just a green pea
That's
garnish,
beautiful.
and
Look at that.
it just brings out all the different colors and all that kind of stuff. Okay, just like so.
Magnificent.
And
That
that's
is
how I would
terrific.
serve that at home. In a restaurant situation, maybe you would plate it up individually.
Right.
Okay. Or if it's a family-style meal, you would serve it
Yeah,
just like
that's
so.
great.
Okay. So that's our version of a pot roast here at the Culinary Institute.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And I hope you all get the recipe online and you give this a try, because take my word for it, it is absolutely delicious. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Cooking Classics.